Ghostbusters, and there's a London team behind it. But before we meet one of them, let's see a clip of the film.
Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Pick up the phone and call the professionals.
Ghostbusters.
We're ready to believe you!
The empowering message of Ghostbusters is that no matter what monsters we create in the world, if we have the courage, the tools, the talent, and the fortitude, we can deal with pretty much anything.
Now the film's producer Claire Bueno joins me now. Now, I mentioned the rebooted version.
Yeah.
Everyone would think, oh, it's obviously time to coincide with that, but you've been working on this for longer than that's been going.
It is, yeah. We started it 8 years ago, and Ghostbusters is the favourite film of my brother who's directed it, and it just felt like the natural thing for us to do as filmmakers, as me as an interviewer and Anthony as a filmmaker, to go on this journey and tell the story about the film that we love, basically, from our childhood.
And when you saw some of the stars in action repeating lines, that must have been great fun to go and do.
It's amazing. We've got an incredible story with Harold Ramis, who, as we know, is no longer with us, but we went to his office for the interview, and we knocked on the door, very, very nervous, as you can imagine. It's Egon Spengler, and he just opened the door and went, "It's the Ghostbusters!" And it was like, oh my God, I think we've just been called a Ghostbuster by a Ghostbuster. So it was brilliant. But yeah, I mean, they say don't meet your heroes, but this has been an incredible journey, and everybody's been superb.
What you said, your brother's favourite film. I mean, was he obsessed as a kid growing up? Is that? I mean, I imagine had lots of kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was my first film that I was allowed to go and see as an adult without, my parent supervision, a teenager, and for my brother it just captured his imagination and his interest then in the paranormal, and Dan Aykroyd as well, and he's got a lot to answer for, Ghostbusters, and I'm sure we're not the only family to say that.
Well, I mean, obviously you're making a film about the film. What do you think the reason is for its such enduring appeal?
Yeah, well, after interviewing Dan Aykroyd, the reason being is that because it comes from truth, and like any good film, it's all about telling truth and bringing truth to the big screen. And for Dan Aykroyd, this story of the paranormal and spiritualism and that movement is very important to him, and he truly believes in the paranormal.
I mean, that's interesting because, we accept, you mentioned the truth there, you're like Ghostbusters, but Dan Aykroyd is a fervent believer in that.
Yeah,
his history is, communes with his previous relatives and so on. Yes. And that's been really interesting hearing his take, exploring that.
Yeah, absolutely, because it goes back to his grandfather, and his father's written a book about it, which inspired then for him to go and write this film, Ghostbusters, an old-fashioned ghost story.
How many times did you have to rewatch the original before?
I have to watch it every time I go back out to obviously interview people, because I've got to have it fresh in my mind. Anthony, he's seen these films about 1,000 times, so he could just recite the film, So we've seen it a lot.
Are you looking forward to the new one?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we saw the trailer last night, which was very exciting. There's a great buzz, and I think what's nice is that I think what Sony have done very well, Columbia stroke Sony, is that I think they've waited for the right story to come along. I don't think they've just tried to cash in on a brand, and Ghostbusters is a big brand, and it's had a faithful audience for over 30 years. So, I think it's very exciting to bring a new story with new cast, and I think we're going to see a few familiar faces as well.
Well, I look forward to that. Now, finally, I understand there's a crowdfunding.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that and how people get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so far, it's all been self-funded today. And just to allow us to finish off the documentary, to go back over to the States and finish some filming and complete post-production, we've now launched a Kickstarter. We're looking for £40,000. We've reached 25,500 to date, and it completes on Monday. The catch with Kickstarter, though, is if we don't complete the whole funds, if we don't raise the whole funds, we get nothing. So we need people to keep pledging.
So that's on Kickstarter there. If you want to.
It is, yeah. If you look for Ghostbusters.
Look for Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters Doc.
Ghostbusters Doc. Claire Bueno, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
The very best of luck.
Thank you.
With raising money for what looks like a fascinating film. Now let's go back to London's Guildhall.